In this video we will explore and claim the rapid early expansion strategy for Stellaris. Rapid early expansion is the strategy of the land grab. Be there first and defend from a position of strength. Rapid early expansion may also be known by the acronym REX. In this video, we will show perfected Rex strategy for Stellaris. First, we must ask who should Rex and why. Just as the early conquest strategy suits the militarists, subjugators, and the xenocidal, so the early expansion strategy suits the pacifists and economists. It is the mandatory early strategy for the inward perfectionists. The inward perfectionist can neither do aggressive militarism nor cover for pacifism through alliance building. If the peaceful autists are to have anything, they must claim it before anyone else and then stand alone on it against all comers. He who chases two rabbits catches neither. Confucius. An optimal Rex has quite specific inputs. These inputs, or resources, could otherwise be deployed for a tech rush, a colony rush, or a fleet rush. The first thing to get straight is that by Rexing, you are not doing these other things, at least until you are done Rexing. Otherwise, you will be doing the everything rush, which is no rush at all. For example, you start with all the tech you need to Rex, and so any extra investment in tech in the early game is ultimately to the detriment of a Rex. Those resources, such as specialist man hours, could otherwise be invested in alloy and unity production instead, which are directly useful. Once your Rex is done, you can catch up on tech powered by the science resources of your vast collection of star systems. Ingredients of a rapid early expansion. The crude backbone of rapid early expansion is the spamming of outposts to claim systems. This requires maximizing the production of alloys and influence, mainly. Also, there is some cunning in the exact order that outposts are built and where, in order to enclose the maximum number of stars from rivals for the least amount of time and resources. I call this technique Star Corralling. I will detail this Star Corralling later in the video. For now, we are looking to maximize outposts until we bump up against rival empires and our borders begin to settle. The inputs for outposts are influence and alloys, and they are built by construction ships, of course. Generally, one construction ship is enough for most early games, but for a Rex, at least one more, and even as many as 4 is required. Before we can build an outpost in a system, we need to have it surveyed by a science ship. Surveying is quite a slow process, so it is a potential bottleneck. Multiple science ships are necessary then. Science ships again cost alloys and need to be piloted by leaders who cost unity. There are a number of traditions that have significant benefit for a Rex, and they also cost unity. As we expand, we will encounter our rivals, and they will be plotting to take our claims, so we cannot neglect our military fleets either. Fleet building again costs alloys mainly, but a big fleet also generates influence through the Imperial projection mechanic. So, to fuel a Rex, we need alloys, influence, and unity. In order to support a Rex, then, our early economy should prioritize producing these. Now we know the Rex ingredients, it is time to consider how to deploy them for maximum effect. Star Corralling. Tactics for system enclosure. It takes time and resources to survey and claim a system. However, with some smart prioritizing, we can corral for ourselves systems we have neither surveyed nor claimed. Once outer expansion reaches a standoff, we can then backfill these corralled systems. In this way, maximizing the amount of systems we can claim peacefully. Star Corralling is great for maximizing a Rex, but it is also useful for any strategy involving peaceful system claiming. Priority 1. Explore the hyperlane network. The trick to the Star Corralling tactic is to know the geometry of the local network of star lanes ahead of surveying and claiming. For example, if we discover that a whole section of systems is blocked by a home system and the edge of the galaxy, then we can safely leave investing in surveys and construction there until later. For this reason, some of our early science ships should be set to explore the hyperlane network rather than start surveying straight away. We also want to know as soon as possible where our rival empires are. It is in their direction we want to expand first in order to beat them to as many claims as possible. Priority 2. Survey the main routes. Until we know what is in a system, then one system is much like another in terms of its resource yield. However, one system is not like another in terms of its strategic position. Systems which lead to access to more systems are to be preferred over those that are dead ends or blind loops. The systems which lead to more systems can be thought of as main route systems. Priority 3. Claim the bottlenecks and choke points. The reason for prioritizing surveying the main routes is to ensure we can claim them early too. By doing so, we naturally corral off from rival empires all the dead ends and blind loops that are connected to the main route systems without having to spend resources actually claiming them. Those systems on main routes that finally lock off access to the dead ends and blind loops are bottlenecks or choke points, which have defensive value in their own right. Priority 4. Defensive posture. Once our expansion begins to bump up against other empires, we need to prioritize defending our claims. At this point, their future expansion will have to come from taking ours. To ward off invasion, we need to pump alloys into active defense deterrents, like ships, and passive defense deterrents, like starbases. In this way, the peaceful Rex strategy is even more alloy hungry than the rapid early conquest strategy I detailed in another video and on my blog. The early conqueror only needs alloys for fleets, not outposts, but the Rexer needs alloys for both fleets and outposts. Priority 5. Backfill and colonize. Now, the borders are largely set and our defenses are going up. It is time to start backfilling all the systems we corralled and start colonizing the planets. You might think that a Rex should colonize early, but I would say that is actually suboptimal. Colony ships are very expensive and colonies take a long time to start yielding a return on investment. The resources you spend on a colony ship could have been spent on several outposts instead. Remember about chasing two rabbits? A colony rush is a legitimate early game strategy for some builds, but it is a distinct strategy from a Rex strategy. For an optimal Rex, reach furthest expansion and secure it before looking to colonize. Closed borders. In order to reliably keep corralled systems from being claimed by rivals, you will ideally have closed borders with them. Closed borders does not facilitate friendly relations with neighbours, however. For this reason, a Rex is a strategy best employed by empires that are not geared towards diplomacy and trade. System skipping. Alongside the Star Corralling method outlined earlier, one might be tempted to skip systems to push out the boundaries of what can be peacefully claimed. One can do this, of course, but it is a very expensive way in terms of influence. This is because the distant system's influence cost is increased by each skipped system. But when you want to backfill, you will still need to pay the influence cost on the skipped systems. If you are rich on influence but short of alloys, this might be worth it, especially if you have a fat discount on outpost influence. For example, from the slingshot to the star's origin, and from being a fanatical xenophobe. Otherwise, the Star Corralling tactic will be more efficient because we are usually more limited by influence than by alloys. Tradition sequence for a Rex. One might think the expansion tradition should go first. However, given colonizing planets is a lower priority than grabbing systems or surveying them, there is only one tradition in that tree that is of immediate use. That tradition is Reach for the Stars, which gives a small discount on the starbase influence cost. That tradition is in line with Rex priorities, but it is quite a small benefit and skippable if otherwise the expansion tradition is of no interest. Ideal tradition sequence. First, adopt the discovery tree for the Map the Stars edict, and then take To Boldly Go for the boost to survey speeds. We need to survey before we can claim. Then take either or both of expansion and domination to get Reach for the Stars and or Colonial Viceroys. Colonial Viceroys yields 0.5 to monthly influence, which is arguably stronger and more versatile than the Starbase influence discount of reach for the stars. This is especially true if you are already rocking a starbase influence discount from being xenophobic or have the slingshot to the stars origin. Once you have some outposts and some mining or research stations, you could adopt prosperity for the boost to mining stations, or take the Discovery Tradition databank uplinks for the research stations boost. By maximising systems over colonies, the Rex benefits more strongly from buffs to resource stations over buffs to pops. Once your outward expansion is checked by your rivals, you can certainly expect they will be casting aggressive claims upon you. At about this time, when you are prepping to defend, you could start down the unyielding tree, or indeed also take the supremacy tree. After that, as you please, built to Rex. Now we know how to Rex, let us look at the Empire builds that are optimal for rapid early expansion. Ideal Empire build qualities for the Rex. Government type. Imperial is good. It gives us an extra influence bonus from fleet strength. Oligarchic as a unity bonus, which is handy for supporting our science leaders and grabbing traditions. In terms of ethics, we obviously will want xenophobe ideally. It has a solid discount on starbase influence. Authoritarian is also good for the general bonus to influence. Pacifist is not so much good for the Rex as Rex is good for the pacifist, especially the socially awkward pacifists that do not do diplomacy. Speaking of which, in terms of civics, we have inward perfection, which, as with the pacifist, inward perfection is not so much good for the Rex, but Rex is good for the inward perfectionist. Private prospectors. Rex is all about systems before colonies, but the cheap colony ships of this civic can let you do both, and the discount to empire size from systems is okay too. Although, of course, it is only available to megacorps, and megacorps are not well suited to wide playstyles. Leader boosting civics are worth a look because of how important science ships are in the early game. Species traits. Leader boosting traits are good for productive surveys and anomaly hunting. Also, leader traits are generally good for xenophobic empires because they have less access to non-primary species for leaders. See my article on species stratification. Origins. As already mentioned, the Slingshot to the Stars origin offers a big discount on the influence cost of distant outposts, while the megastructure itself can help in the mid-game both to continue Rexing after being boxed in, or rapidly deploy defensive fleets to your far-flung borders. The large alloy cost of restoring the quantum catapult competes with building outposts and defensive assets though. Subterranean is also quite good. The extra mining districts is okay to keep fueling your massive demand for alloys. The Rexer will tend to be fighting defensive wars, so the resistance to bombardment could be handy. If you would like to see some Empire builds which are good for Rexing, including the ultimate Rexing build, then see the links in the description of this video to see some of the many great Empire builds on my gaming blog, solarcrossgames.co.uk. Or indeed, you could subscribe to this channel for any future videos I make about Stellaris. Likes, comments and shares are also welcome, and if you would like to know about the rapid early conquest strategy, then why not watch this video here. Bye for now!